Hey everybody, I'm Kenny, this is Sagebrush Soul, and this is the promised sequel to my first knife sheath making video where we'll make the prettier of the two sheaths for my little buddy Maverick. We're just going to jump right into this one. I start by making the pattern. This is an old poster, but any heavy paper will do. I fold the paper in half to give me a reference to trace the knife. Leave the knife about 1/8 of an inch from the fold to trace it. This leaves a little room to make up for the difference in the thickness between the paper and the leather. The thicker the leather, the more room you should leave. Don't get too hung up on this, just leave a little room and you should be fine. Fun fact, this is a 7 to 8 ounce leather, which is just a little over 1/8 of an inch. Now to mark where the filler strip's gonna go. I'll go into that more when we make it. I make this one about 1/2 inch. I cut along the line, then fold it in half and use said line as a tracing guide. Once the blade portion is all cut out, I move to the handle. Like the bushcraft sheath, I just kind of mark it, trim it, and fit it until all the paper that doesn't look like a sheath is gone. I have no idea how to explain what's going on here, so it's probably better if you just watch. I actually got a little crazy on the height of the sheath and wound up taking a little out of the middle and taped it back together. Before you trace the pattern, make sure you have the correct side facing up for the side you want it to go on, meaning left or right-handed. The same applies to tooling as well. And this is a foreshadowing moment. Then making sure I keep my hand in the way so you can't see my top secret method of tracing, I transfer the pattern to the leather. I'm just kidding, switch the camera. Even though you can't see it, there is a fine pencil line on the leather. Then I cut it out with a razor knife. To make the filler strip, I trace one side of the pattern onto a scrap of 8 to 9 ounce leather, which is about 3/16 of an inch thick. Then I measure 1/2 inch to the inside of that line and cut it out. At this point, it's time to tool. But in order to tool, we need a design. I don't much care for stamped letters, so I pretty much either draw my letters or print the font I want and carve them out. I wanted Mav to have a true one-of-a-kind sheath, so I decided to draw the letters and add some mule deer horns because that's what we hunt around here. And I'm pretty sure at the time I was making this, he was doing just that. Then I wet the leather and sandwich a piece of tracing film between the leather and my drawing, then transfer the outline to the leather. I did get in a hurry here and started carving the leather while it was still a little too wet. Ugh, there's just not a good camera angle for this. After the pattern was carved, I took advantage of the moisture and did a little preliminary texture on the antlers. You know it's wet if the water's coming out while you shape. A good indicator of proper moisture for tooling is if it looks dry but it's still cool to the touch. But if your hands are callous like mine and you really can't feel it, hold it on your cheek. After the leather dried for a while, I started tooling it with a crosshatch bevel tool. For the tight spots, I use a crosshatch background tool. In this particular application, I'm only going around the letters and the horns to help them pop. For the final touch, I use a hair blade tool, apparently now known by Tandy as a hair blade pencil. I know it's pretty much impossible to see here, but it really does add another layer of detail. Now it's time to dye. I'm going to be using two colors on this sheath, British Tan and Medium Brown. I've had this British Tan dye for so long, it's a little too dark, so I'm going to reduce it with a little bit of denatured alcohol. I start off by painting around the letters with a paintbrush. You can see the dye is water thin. I'm trying to let the dye run into the groove between the letters, antlers, and background more than paint right against them. Once the tricky spots are painted, I use a wool dauber to do the rest. After the dye dried, I went back over the first area to darken it up a bit. Moving on to the antlers, I gingerly streak it with medium brown and taper it off towards the tips. Then I reduce some medium brown to make it a little more transparent. I use this to blend the streaks, and I'm also going to use it for a little bit of shading around the horns. I wanted a little more pop on this, so I used some watered down craft paint to add a touch of highlight to the antlers. Now remember when I told you to pay attention to your patterns? You know, the part about making sure they're on the correct side? Well, here's why. I totally tooled the wrong side of this sheath. Fortunately, Mav appears to be pretty ambidextrous, so this just became a left-handed sheath. Using the original pattern, I marked a line that I thought looked good and removed the thumb strap. I'm gonna have to make a new thumb/retainer strap, so I go ahead and cut that too. Now we'll put on the belt loop. I covered this better in my last video, but the most important thing to remember is to glue and stitch the top before the bottom. I decided it'd be easier to attach the new thumb strap before finishing the stitching on the belt loop. I'll attach it to the back side of the sheath with a rivet. I'm leaving it long so I can cut it to fit later. Moving on to the filler strip, I'm going to score the smooth side of the leather to help the glue penetrate. I applied glue to both surfaces, but you can see I don't quite take it to the edge because a test fit indicated it might be a little long. I'm going to glue it first, then trim it for the best possible fit. Then I glue the other side, and after a few minutes, I'll line up the edges, glue her down, and clamp it. After the glue dries for about 30 minutes, I even out the edges on my belt sander, then I bevel and die them. Now we make a groove with a gouge for the stitches. After I touch up the groove with some dye, we're going to go ahead and punch some holes for the stitches. I really tried to do a better job of showing the hand stitching process, but I clearly couldn't find the right camera angle, so I decided to just fast forward through this, and I'll put together a specific stitching video down the road. If you check out my bushcraft sheath video linked in the description, it should give you a better idea how this works. Onto the thumb strap. I put the knife in the sheath and wrap it around and mark where I want to cut it. I cut the strap around the edges and give them the same treatment as everything else. Now I'm going to go ahead and block your view so you can't see me punch a hole in my mark on the strap. Then I use that hole to mark the sheath. Once that's all punched out, I install a line 20 snap. Just for a little more added security, I went ahead and added another rivet to the top of the back stitch. Then I finish all the edges with the white stuff that I can't pronounce. The final treatment is different from the last sheath. I want a little bit more gloss, so I used copious amounts of leather sheen and buffed it out with a brush. And we're done. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, and may the best of your past be the worst of your future.